Hey guys, welcome into Rover Sports, and I am pleased to be joined by a very special guest. I learned about Mr. Dugas from Volunteer Roadshow. I've caught up and watched a lot of his videos on YouTube. He's a fairly young YouTuber, and it's Mr. Dugas. And Dugas, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing awesome. I want to welcome you into Rover Sports. We are live here on my channel. I set up a nice background for you. And first off, man, my first question to you is, how are you an Eagles fan from Louisiana?
Well, it started, when I was young. It's funny because my dad is actually a huge Saints fan, even to this day. And the first Saints game I attended was in the early 90s. I actually seen the Eagles take on the Saints with Randall Cunningham at quarterback. And the Eagles actually won that game 9-7. And at the time, man, the Saints were just very bad, man. And as a kid, you want to be part of a winner. And the Eagles won that game. And then I was watching Syracuse play football, and I seen Donovan McNabb, and I'm like, man, this guy's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And look again, the Eagles take him when everyone thought they was going to end up taking Ricky Williams. And I rolled with the Eagles fans. I started playing with them on Madden. I I like to play man-to-man coverage. They had Bobby Taylor and Troy Vincent and Brian Dawkins back there in the secondary, and I've just been a fan and been in love with them ever since.
Now, even though you're from Louisiana, you're a state over from Texas, so I bet there's a lot of bandwagon Dallas Cowboy fans. And were you a kid like in the early 90s when like Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith were running around with Michael Irvin? And was there a lot of bandwagon Dallas Cowboy fans?
Oh yeah, they're everywhere, man. Especially, I went to a parade the weekend right after they beat the Saints. And there's like Cowboy fans in trucks blowing their horn with all their signs and everything. But they come out the woodworks, but as soon as they get shut out by the coach, they're nowhere to be found.
Right.
But back in the early 90s, man, I never really even cared for them then. I kind of would look a little more towards like San Francisco, for example,
Right.
than them. But yeah, they all over here, man. You'll be surprised how many Cowboy fans they have in Louisiana also.
No, and Cowboy fans are everywhere, and a lot of people probably are from Texas that kind of will live in Louisiana as well. But you know what, man, I am from I'm from Philadelphia. But I don't know if you've ever been to the link, but I'm kind of like you. Like, I didn't want to just decide to be a fan of the hometown Eagles. And the Eagles were very good growing up. When I grew up, it was exactly the Andy Reid, Donovan McNabb, Brian Westbrook. It was that era. And, a lot of my family's from New York as well. So I'm actually a Giants fan living in Philadelphia, because the Eagles fans, if you've ever been up to a game at the Link or even the old Vet, it's a very aggressive sort of fan base. And it's fun at the same time, like with the Eagles fans, but all my friends are Eagle guys, so I'm a Giants fan, and I can admit that I don't like the Eagles, but good people like yourself, they are Eagles fans. But it is a very aggressive fan group. Doesn't that make sense? Like, you kind of have to be entrenched in that culture to kind of like the Eagles.
Oh, exactly. I haven't been there yet. I do plan on going within the next year or so. But yeah, that's another thing too about the Eagles, man. I know we get a bad rap of being, throwing snowballs at Santa Claus and cheering Michael Irvin's injury, which I'll never, co-sign for something like that. But it's a very aggressive but very knowledgeable fan base. We know what's acceptable and we know what's not acceptable. And whenever we feel like something is unacceptable, we let our voice be heard. Maybe a little more than we should, but that's how the fan base rolls, and I love it.
Yeah, because, in Louisiana, I definitely know that LSU Tigers, the Saints take a big back seat to LSU. I mean, maybe it was recently with Drew Brees and Sean Payton coming over. That's when the Saints really started to tick up, but it's pretty much an LSU Tiger place. And I'm sure that for a lot of your childhood, the Saints fandom, there wasn't that type of passion about the New Orleans Saints that there might be right now.
Oh no, definitely. I mean, I remember, the Jim Everett and the Billy Joe Hobart and the Billy Joe Tolliver days. The Aaron Brooks days started off kind of good, but then it went bad early. But yeah, ever since Drew Brees and Sean Payton and Reggie Bush, who also went there that year, came along, the fan base grew, especially after the Super Bowl win, man. I mean, there's people who, I remember that didn't really care for the Saints that are like, everything is who that now, But yeah, as far as LSU, man, like, yeah, LSU is home, it's homegrown talent, it's SEC, it's dominance, it's people that you personally know that's played for that university. I'll say the Saints are a little above it now, since LSU, since the 2011-12 national championship shutout to Alabama. The luster has left a little bit, and the Saints with Drew Brees, breaking all these records and the playoff appearances has picked up a little bit. But yeah, LSU is big down here, man. It's really big, man.
LSU, right. It is a family, like atmosphere. So, like around here in the Northeast, like Friday nights in high school football, you'll have to go. There's some schools that don't even play that well at football, or it's kind of a sideshow, actually. But I'm curious where you're from in Louisiana. Do you still go out to Friday night football games? Do you love watching kids at your local high school or travel to schools where you're like, this guy could be a Tiger? And do you know families of LSU players growing up or living in Louisiana right now?
Yes, I actually attended schools called St. Martinville Senior High, which is funny. We had an undefeated season this year. We went 10-0. We made it to the quarterfinals, had a heartbreaking loss in the quarterfinals. But real quick story about them, I had a little cousin who was a linebacker on the team. And in May, he died in a tragic car accident. And this season, I have a job now where I'm home a lot now. I don't travel as much. So I was able to actually go to every football game every Friday this season. To sit with his mom, my cousin, and the rest of my family who all went to support her. And to see that how this team came together, they came out with his jersey before every game, hung his jersey up during every game, and celebrated with it after every game. And for them to go undefeated this season, the first undefeated season we had since 1996. Was a beautiful thing to see, man. I'm so glad that, I was a part of it and everything that they've done for my family during this very difficult time. Right. So, yeah, I got to go to every St. Martinville game this year, man. It was a blast.
Yeah, that is absolutely awesome. So we're talking here with Mr. Dugas. You could check all of his work out. You could check all of his work on his channel. I'm going to post a link to the description, in the description of his channel. He talks Eagles and he talks LSU. Since you're an Eagle fan, since you're an LSU fan, you're the type of guy where, especially right now, I mean, the Eagles just won the Super Bowl, but with the Eagles and LSU, you're kind of always chasing. For the Eagles, you were chasing maybe the Patriots or just winning that elusive first championship. How incredible was it last year to finally win a championship? And how and I wanted to ask you, since the Eagles never won a championship, does it make it more special being an Eagles fan because you were there for the ups and downs of the journey for the Eagles?
Man, like, what's so ironic, I actually got to watch the Super Bowl at a very close cousin of mine's house who is a Patriots fan. And he always used to, we talk and joke and pick at each other. And he would always bring up the '04 Super Bowl. Like when we basically chose, McNabb had the 3 interceptions and, You know, T.O. played on a bad leg. And for us to win that game and to beat that team, after the game was over, I cried. You know, I cried because it's like, man, you know, the jokes of, oh, you got 0 Super Bowl wins and the Eagles never gonna win one. And then when you consider how it happened, you know, with Wentz going down, man, and everybody just wrote us off. For us to be an underdog, having home field advantage, and to still go out there and, you know, escape the Atlanta game, to beat down the Vikings, and to play the magnificent game that we played against the Patriots, while Brady was pretty much on his A game, and to still win that game, I was filled with so much emotion that I literally cried after the game, real tears.
That's what football is all about, man. And I love people like yourself that care so much about football. You know, I don't like people that say football is just a game, because your whole life, I mean, I've cried after wins and losses, you know, for the Giants or for teams I really care about. And my dad is one of those Eagles fans, man. My dad's he's been going to Eagles games since 1969. So he was like looking up at his, at my grandfather. His father had passed, and he dedicated like that win to that Super Bowl win to them, because it's been such a long journey. So even that was honestly so special. And the thing is, you know, you had Nick Foles, Carson Wentz got injured. I mean, it was so kind of unexpected. But the fact that it was the New England Patriots, the fact that it was Tom Brady, I mean, you couldn't have wanted it any other way in that scenario, you know, with the Philly special and everything.
Oh yeah, man. It was just a great day, man. You know, seeing LeGarrette Blount, you know, run against his former team. You know, that touchdown, the first touchdown with Alshon Jeffrey. You know, the Philly special was just amazing, man. You know, for most people wanting us to kick the field goal in that situation, and to call a play like that and to execute it so perfectly the way we executed it, you know, knowing that, especially what happened the year before when the Falcons had such a huge lead against the Patriots, you know, for us to keep the pedal to the metal, you know, even in the fourth quarter when we were down, the 4th and 1 play to Zach Ertz, you know, it was just lovely to see, man. Just relentless play calling by Dougie P. Just great, consistent, calm leadership performance by Nick Foles. And the defense, who was getting shredded all game, for Brandon Graham to come up with that strip sack when he came up with it, when everybody at the moment thought, with the Patriots getting the ball back down 5, that it was inevitable that Brady was going to go down and win the game. And for us to come up with that play at that moment, it was beautiful, man. And all that, still, it took a Hail Mary for us to knock away. You know, when that ball hit the ground and I seen the players running on the field and the confetti falling, it was just like, man, we finally did it, man.
I don't think anything's gonna top it. Maybe LSU will be able to top it at some point, but there's nothing like a first championship, and I'm gonna tell you that. And the good news is, man, is that you know, since I'm a Giants fan, you know, I got to go to the game against the Patriots where Tom Brady in 2011 threw the ball on a Hail Mary into the end zone. And if Rob Gronkowski, I don't know if you remember this, Gronkowski almost caught that ball, but he was a little bit hobbled, if you remember that. And at least you guys were up by 8. You know what I'm saying? So you had to feel comfortable. They would have had to still make it 2. But I just felt like it was your year. And do you get frustrated when you live in New Orleans? So this is even going to be more applicable to you. Do you get frustrated when people say, "Oh, you dodged the Saints. You know, your Super Bowl is not as special because you didn't play New Orleans"? And I'm sure there's Saints fans that come up to you and say, "Hey, you know what? If Minneapolis Miracle didn't happen, we would have beat you in the NFC Championship." I'm sure you have that question a lot.
It's so ironic. I actually dealt with that today. You know? Like
today,
it's like,
a year later.
Yes, today, a year later, man. You know, Like, oh yeah, we would have went to the link, man. You lucky this and that. I said, look, man, on that day, the way we played against the Vikings, man, I don't believe we would have lost at home that day, knowing what's on the line. But of course, they feel like, oh, then, especially the way that we beat the Vikings, how we just beat them so handily. It's like, oh yeah, we would have went there, it wouldn't have been none of that. They was lucky. It was the Minneapolis makeover or something like that. The meaningless miracle is what they call it. Oh yeah, they give me a hard time, man. But like I said, I'll take the trophy any day over ifs and buts and maybes.
Yes, yes, of course. And by the way, you were 13-3. You know what I mean? Like, you dominated the NFL season. You were number one. The Philadelphia Eagles were number one, had the number one seed and everything. You can only play who's on your schedule. And I'm going to bring it right up to the current day, man, with this question, okay? Going into the Rams game, you must have thought, like, this is not our year, Super Bowl hangover. We've had all these injuries in the secondary. How stunned were you to just go out there and have a 30-13 lead against the 12-2 LA Rams or the 11-2 LA Rams? And what do you think about Nick Foles? What do you think about Nick Foles potentially finishing this season? And do you like how the offense runs with Nick Foles compared to Carson Wentz? What do you think about Foles?
Well, the first part is I was extremely stunned to see us play the way we did against the Rams. And you're absolutely right. After that Cowboys loss, the way the game went down, the way that I felt from the first play with the Phantom, we never had a clear recovery of the kickoff, against Dallas.
Yeah.
And the way that game ended with Douglas basically breaking up the pass, but the ball going in the air, right to Cooper. Yeah. And then knowing that Wentz wasn't going to play, early on, Foles started the first two games, but, the offense didn't look great,
And the Goddard play in the Dallas game, too, was
even
worse.
Exactly. Where he basically ran his route and got called for pass interference. But with all that, yeah, going into that game, man, I thought we was going to lose like 38-24. To see Sunday night was the first time all season that it felt a little bit like last year. Seeing, Nick Foles out there being steady, calm, just going through his progressions, hitting the open man, a little bit of a run game. Seeing the offensive line doing a great job going up against guys like Aaron Donald and the Dominican Suit. Seeing our defensive line, seeing Fletcher Cox dominated the way he did. Seeing the secondary, a rookie like Avonte Maddox, his first game back since the Saints game, play the way he did at corner. And even with all that, when they was driving at the end, I'm like, oh boy, here we go again. And for us to come out of there with a victory, to know that we basically 2 games, 2 wins, and a Vikings loss away from getting back into the playoffs, man, it was a great feeling. And, and as far as with Nick Foles, I'm a Carson Wentz guy. Like, I think Carson Wentz is going to be a budding superstar in this league. He was voted by the NFL players as the number 3 player on the top 100 last year. He was basically the MVP of the league when he walked out of the Coliseum last year. And this year, he was good, but he wasn't great. I felt like he never was fully recovered from his knee injury. It was times where I felt like he keyed in on Zach Ertz a little bit too much. It was times where he held on to the ball too much. And to see Foles go out there and run the offense, get rid of the ball quickly, use the RPOs, which was so successful for us last year in the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl. I think right now for the rest of the season, I think we have a better chance to win this year with Nick Foles. Mm-hmm. Now, coming into next year and going beyond is Carson Wentz's team. I feel like next year he's going to come back. He's going to be healthy. He's going to get back to the level he was before. But right now, it's just the feeling that, we forget that Nick Foles was the Super Bowl MVP. That, he outdueled Tom Brady on his career date. So it feels kind of fitting that we should ride this thing out with the man who won the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah. And you know what? You guys are you're kind of in a good situation. It's kind of a no-lose situation because you let Nick continue to ride out this year. And if you know the Houston game, I believe you guys can win that game. It's like a pick-em game versus Houston. And then you need the Vikings to lose, probably to Chicago. You need Chicago to try on the road at Minnesota. And it's going to be tough for the Vikings to lose a game because they're playing Detroit. They fired their offensive coordinator. They're running the ball better. But the thing is about Carson is that he's still very, very young. And Nick Foles has failed at other places. Like in L.A., he wasn't very good. He seems like he has a lot of miles on the tire. And I know the Chip Kelly year where he threw 27 touchdowns, 2 picks. It's not like Nick Foles is invincible. So talk about Nick Foles as an athlete compared to Carson Wentz. Is that why people want to roll with Carson Wentz, because Nick Foles has the potential to get hurt and he's just an immobile quarterback?
I think with Wentz, you know, he gives you the wild plays. First of all, he's much younger, obviously, but he gives you the wild plays, you know. Like you think about even his rookie year, you know, the statistics won't really back it up as much. You know, he had 16 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. But, I mean, he threw to people like Dorial Green-Beckham, you know, who's not even in the league anymore. And even that year, with the 3-0 start, the game against the Steelers, you know, there was this one play when one of the defenders came free right up the middle, and he sidestepped him. And he rolled to the right, and he threw just a beautiful pass on the run to Darren Sproles, who took it in for like 70-something yards. Right. You know, plays like that, even last year, you know, the Monday Night Redskin game, you know, when we thought he was sacked and he came out like Houdini and rushed for a first down, you know, which is like, wow, man, this is amazing, you know. And just everything about him, man, he seems like a strong leader. You know, he's very athletic. He's big. He's strong. You know how they got like 5'2" baseball players? Like, he seems like a 5'2" quarterback. You know, the only issue with him, obviously, going forward and already in his career is, can he stay healthy? You know, that's the biggest issue with Carson. And with Foles is, you know, you don't have the wild plays with Foles like you have with Wentz. You know, you don't have the mobility with Foles like you have with Wentz. But what you do have with Foles now is a veteran leader who's been around the way. Like you say, has failed in this league. Maybe has a little more of a chip on his shoulder. You know, when he was with us, you know, the first go-around, when he broke his collarbone with the Texans, you know, Chip just traded him away to L.A. for Sam Bradford. You know, Foles, after the 27-2 year, you know, he was having another solid year. We were like 9-3 leading the NFC East once he got hurt. Right. You know, and he missed the rest of the year. And Sanchez came in, and we all know what happened with Sanchez. Besides the good Thanksgiving Day game against Dallas, he was terrible. And the Monday night game against Carolina, he played well. Besides those 2 games, he was terrible, you know.
Wait, the team was 9-3. Wait, did they make the playoffs that year?
Nah, we actually missed it. You know, we were 9-3. And then we went on a 3-game losing streak. I want to say we lost to Seattle, then Dallas again, then the Redskins, and we won the last one. That's the year when Dallas won the division with DeMarco Murray, Romo. That was the Dan non-catching Green Bay season.
Okay, with Chip. Yeah, it's funny that, I do remember that 9-3. I do remember that entire season. But really going back to Carson Wentz, like I was at the Monday night game. The throw to Matt Collins is a throw that he hasn't made this year. That bomb, that 60-yard bomb. How about the throw, a play that really described Carson Wentz? The Carolina game, Carson was a warrior last year at Carolina. That's when I knew you guys were for real. But the throw against the Arizona Cardinals to Aguilar, and remember Aguilar would juke out that guy. He put him on skates and flipped into the end zone. Carson was so aggressive throwing the ball down the field last year. Like, he would hit Aguilar for maybe 40-yard plays, all these chunk plays ridiculous arm talent throws. And this year, what Nick Foles did on Sunday night was he gave Alshon Jeffrey a chance to make 50-50 catches. Like the moon ball throw where Aguilar and Jeffrey had a chance to both catch it in the second half was an unbelievable throw. The throw up the sideline to Alshon Jeffrey, it just looks like Nick Foles is trusting Jeffrey, and I want to see Wentz throw the ball up more to Alshon Jeffrey because that dude is a number one receiver. He's a big-time player.
Yes, he is. And yeah, and you know, even last year, it took until the 49ers game for Wentz to really start giving Jeffrey those 50-50 balls. Because, you know, Jeffrey started off slow with us last year. You know, there was the questions that, oh, did we overpay for him and things like that. And once the 49ers game happened, you know, Wentz started giving him more and more of an opportunity. And, you know, one thing, to be a little fair to him, we're missing that vertical threat this season. You know, last year we had Torrey Smith. He didn't have a great year, but just the presence of him going downfield to stretch the defense had opened up a lot of things. You know, that was supposed to be Mike Wallace for us this season, but, you know, he had the broken fibula against Tampa Bay early on in the year. And, yeah, for some reason, you know, he hasn't trusted Jeffrey as much this year. You know, a lot of things I probably could count on one hand how many times he really, really chunked it really deep this season, you know. And it's a little disturbing. I don't know if it's because he wants to be more cautious this year. You know, I don't know if I can't really say it's because he don't want to hold on, because he does hold on to the ball pretty long, I feel like. But it was very odd to see, you know, and it was good to see Nick, you know, trust Alshon a little more with those 50-50 balls. You know, it's just that seemed like he just really locks in on Ertz, man. He just really trusted Ertz this season, you know, and hopefully going into the offseason while he heals up and he's fully healthy, that he understands that and he starts giving guys like Jeffrey more of those 50-50 balls down the field like Nick Foles is doing right now.
Absolutely. We're talking here with Mr. Dugas, and I want to thank you for joining my show. I want to give you a couple of rapid-fire questions. And again, Mr. Dugas is going to be with our good buddy Catfish from the Volunteer Roadshow. He's going to be talking SEC football. He knows all about the SEC, all about the SEC West. I want to just fire some rapid-fire LSU questions, if you don't mind.
Okay, sure.
All right, so you got Jimbo Fisher, man. He came in at number 3. Are you worried about Texas A&M and their strong recruiting? Do you fear the Aggies and Jimbo?
They cause concern. They really do. You know, because I know what Jimbo is all about. You know, we seen what he did at Florida State. You know, reviving that program and winning a national championship. And we know that Texas is a very hot recruiting area. You know, and with his, especially at the quarterback position, and we know his history of, you know, getting quarterbacks, you know, like the Christian Ponders, the E.J. Manuels, you know, even Jamarcus Russell when he was the offensive coordinator with LSU back in the day, Jameis Winston, and all these guys basically to become first-round draft picks. You know, so yeah, I am somewhat concerned about Texas A&M in the West. I am.
Yes, and boy, I don't like Jimbo though very much, man. He kind of rubs me the wrong way, and of course his nephew getting in a fight with the coach, like I'm sure that rivalry's gonna heat up.
Ridiculous.
Jimbo just seems like a win at all costs kind of coach.
Oh yeah, it kind of shows with the type of contract he signed with A&M. You know, just out of I'm not going nowhere, and which you know you can't knock nobody for wanting to, you know, do the deal was best for their family, but he does kind of seem a little snooty at times, you know.
So we got a couple of people in the live show. This show is going to be podcasted on the channel. I got Steven Paziazzi. He's a big, we got big Giants fan here. 49er fan is in the house watching the video, Big Blue for Life. So I got a lot of Giants fans that are joining the show right now. And I wanted to ask you a question. about a couple of LSU commits from yesterday. I love this Peter Parrish kid. I think he's a Louisiana kid. He's a quarterback. He can run around, but the kid really has a lot of arm talent. Kind of looks a little bit like Jalen Hurts. Have you seen this kid's highlights? What do you think about the quarterback commit, Parrish?
Yeah, I have seen him. I think he's actually from Phoenix City, Alabama. I want to say.
Yeah, he is. You're right.
And yeah, man, I've seen some of the highlights. Man, he could run, he could wing it. He actually played against Tua's little brother in the state championship game this season, and they beat him like 52-7 or something like that.
Talia?
And
beat Talia?
Oh yeah. And just looking at him, it seems like the type of quarterback that we haven't. That guy was supposed to be Ryan Perrilloux, but we all know with all the off-the-field issues and eventually getting dismissed from the team, we haven't had this type of looking prospect at the quarterback position since him. And, he looks real legit, and I can't wait to see him in purple and gold next season.
Yeah, and Miles Brennan, he's never really had the arm talent, or he's never really had the arm where I'm like, oh, wow, he could be unbelievable. I was never a huge Brennan guy myself.
Right. He's accurate. It's just he's so small, man, and dealing with SEC football, man, you take a beating and you just worry about if his body would be able to hold up, against the Alabamas of the world, the Auburns, the A&Ms, the Georgias, and all the Floridas, And with this Peter Parrish guy, man, not only is he very mobile, but, he looks like a strong kid also, So I'm very excited to see how he does coming in, him competing, learning the offense under Isminger, giving Joe Burrow, who I like to call Jambalaya Joe, a run for his money next season for the job.
Yes, sir. So, Dugas, we got a question here from a guy in the chat. We got an LSU question for you. It's from Eyeball Billy. He asks, is Greedy Williams going to be as good in the NFL as Tre'Davious White on the Buffalo Bills?
I'm afraid I don't think he'll be as good as Trey White. Trey White was a little thicker, a little stronger, and more faster than him. And Greedy had a really good year. My only issue with Greedy is when he goes up against real big receivers and speedy receivers. Because in the Alabama game, he struggled with Judy. He struggled a little bit covering him. And against A&M, those big, tall receivers, they got to him a little bit. But I think he has good technique in the right system with the right defensive back coach. I think he'll have a solid NFL career, but I don't think he'll be as good as Tre'Davious White is.
Now, you saw Mo Claiborne play as well, and he was selected number 6 overall for the Cowboys and then the Jets, and he didn't really have that great of it. He's still playing in the NFL. He's getting better. Did you think he was going to be big time, or you saw some of those flaws early with him in the NFL, going to the NFL?
I saw some of those flaws early. I always liked his size. He was such a physical corner. I love how physical he was playing with us. He also played with, great talent like Eric Reed and the Honey Badger, of course. And, we had another good corner who ended up playing in the Super Bowl with the Seahawks, Terrell Simon. But I did worry a little bit how he would be basically being out on the island without such great athletes in the secondary to go along with him. And I know he struggled early with the Cowboys, but his last season, he actually played pretty well.
Yeah.
Until that playoff game against the Packers, Devontae Adams kind of got the best of him a little bit. But, he's actually doing okay with the Jets right now. He's a solid corner,
So is Greedy Williams more of a press corner? And I guess when he goes up against like bigger guys, like a Kelvin Benjamin, maybe at the NFL level, or I'm trying to think of maybe a Keenan Allen or a Mike Williams for the Chargers, maybe a big body wide receiver, they're just going to box him out. Is he a press cornerback? And are you worried about so you're worried about him getting boxed out by big tight ends or physical receivers?
Yeah, he's more of a press corner because at LSU we like to press our corners a good bit. You know, we got the whole DBU label, but
Mm-hmm.
he's a press corner. It's just I don't know if he's strong, like he's thick like a Claiborne or a White yet. You know, to
Uh-huh.
where he could really get into the receiver. What I do love about him though is what I think he does have better than Trey White and Morris Claiborne is his ball skills. You know, I think he does have a little bit better ball skills. If he could get good position on the receiver, he's great at going up and taking the ball away. You know, like you said, I just worried with the big physical receivers boxing him out a little bit because he's not as thick to really fight him off a little more.
Mm-hmm.
And I worry with the speed receiver because he doesn't have great speed. You know.
Right. Yeah, we got a lot of Giants fans in here. A lot of people are asking about the draft prospects. So I'm going to ask you about another guy, Devin White. And I personally love Devin White. And do you think he's going to be a home run NFL guy that can come in day one and be an inside linebacker at the NFL level?
I think Devin White will be. I think he's going to be the best player in the draft this year.
Out of anybody.
I mean, his sideline to sideline speed. You know, also he's a thumper. Also, you know, he could hold his own in the middle of the line of scrimmage, and he's smart. You know, he's so instinctive, and he makes plays. Man, he is going. I believe he is going to be a great player in the National Football League.
I love.
You know, he kind of reminds me a little bit of a. He's not as big as him, I want to say, but he reminds me a little bit of like when Patrick Willis came out of Ole Miss.
Wow. Or like a Kuechly.
Yeah, so like a Kuechly, man, he's big time, man. I think any team who drafts him is going to get a home run still.
Yeah, great character guy. I love listening to Devin White's interviews. Like, he's a guy that can change a culture. And I love those leaders at the linebacker position. You know, Jamal Adams was one of my favorite players ever out of LSU recently because he's changed the Jets' culture. And he's just a guy that loves the game of football. So those are some I also have there's a lot of other good LSU corners obviously coming out. That you guys even got on signing day or that are going to be there next year, like Grant Delpit and so many other guys. But Mr. Dugas, it was a ton of fun talking to you, man. I'd love to have you back on anytime, and I really hope you enjoyed the interview and the conversation.
I really enjoyed it, man. And once again, I greatly appreciate you having me part of your show. This is an amazing show, man. You're doing a wonderful job.
Yeah, and I can't wait to hang out and talk Eagles ball, man. I got to get you up to the link. You're gonna have a great experience there, and we'll get you up there sometime. And thanks so much for calling in. I can't wait to see you with Catfish soon.
Okay, my pleasure. Let's talk to you soon.
Yep, no doubt. All right, guys. So that was Mr. Dugas. He joined me. And he's tremendous. Not only does he have a great voice, he has a great knowledge for the NFL game, a great knowledge for college football, and it's just a whole lot of fun talking with him. He's going to be a guy that I'm going to be collaborating with often, and he has his own YouTube channel at Mr. Dugas, and it's just a blast talking with guys like him, and it's pretty cool. He's from Louisiana, so yeah, Devin White, man. But Steven, I asked him about the LSU guys. We got Big Blue for life. I'll come on here. I'll talk to you guys for a little bit. I did release that Chargers video, and I'm going to have to do maybe a review tonight, but it was fun having Mr. Dugas on the show. If you guys have any comments or questions, it's a little sad that we don't have any NFL games on, but on Saturday I might do the Ravens game. And I can't wait to do Ravens and Chargers, man. I can't wait for that matchup. We're going to see more about the Chargers in in the playoff picture. But I'm also excited about the Giants, man. We got a lot of Giants fans in here. I can't wait to see them go up to Indianapolis because I want Odell Beckham to play, and it's a great barometer to see how close we are to really being an elite level team. You know what I mean? Like, do you think that we can be an elite level team, and do you think that we can end up beating the Colts or even competing with the Colts? I mean, what do you guys think about our matchup with the Indianapolis Colts? What do you think the prediction is for that game? I'm curious to see what you guys think about our matchup. I'm curious to see what you guys think about our game because, you know, that you look at the Colts and they're a very dangerous team. And, yeah, Steven, he's a big LSU guy. I'm really excited about our Giants going to Indy. It's going to be perfect weather. Eli has to ball. And if it's 27-20, we got to see Eli Manning ball on that indoor turf. We got to see him throw for a whole bunch of yards. And for him, this is a great audition. You know, if he's gonna, if he's going to beat out Bridgewater and all the free agent quarterbacks and all that other talk, he's got to have an elite level game against a great team. Because look at the teams that we've won. Look at the teams that we have beaten this year. It hasn't been that great. 49ers, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Houston Texans were 0-3 when we beat them. So I want a quality win on our schedule before we head into the offseason. We could have beaten the Eagles. I want a good win. Maybe that's Dallas coming down the stretch. But I really want a good competitive win. And for Odell Beckham, I don't think Pat Shurmur's throwing shade at Odell Beckham, but it's just weird that Odell Beckham's not back from this injury yet. And I really want to see our team at full strength against the Colts. I think we can learn a hell of a lot by playing the Colts this week. We're going to learn what areas we need to draft in by playing the Colts. Because, yeah, Eyeball Billy, the Colts are a sneaky good team. I completely agree with you 1,000%. You have Andrew Luck. Marlon Mack was sensational running the ball against the Cowboys. They're really well coached. They have an interesting offensive game plan. I mean, that's exactly right. I can't wait to see the Colts game. Yeah, the Quentin Nelson. Oh my gosh. Quentin Nelson was a tremendous pick, you know? Quentin Nelson was one of my favorite picks in the entire draft out of Homedale, and he's helped solidify that offensive line, but Frank Reich's come in there. He's done a sensational job. Chris Ballard's an elite, a really elite coordinator, and then they're going to have to go play Tennessee for a chance at the 6th seed in the playoffs. Yeah, I guess he is really doing well, man. He was a hybrid at Auburn. You know, he was kind of undersized, so I still liked Willie Hernandez better than Braden Smith. I was happy when we got Hernandez over Braden Smith, but Braden Smith's an athlete, man. He played guard, he played tackle, he could do it all at Auburn, but I wasn't sure where he was going to fit at the NFL level, but he's a big-time player. I'll tell you guys that much. I'll tell you Braden Smith. So, you know, this weekend I'm excited also about the Bills and the Patriots to see if the Bills can compete. Other games, man, I mean, Saturday, you know, the Ravens running game against the Chargers will be a blast, 8 o'clock. Vikings, Lions, Cowboys, and Bucks. Can the Cowboys finally win the East? Browns and Bengals, you know, continue to see Baker Mayfield's progression, continue to see, you know, how the Browns fare. Jets and Packers. The Packers haven't won a game on the road yet. Sam Darnold, can he follow up his performance? And it should be a hell of a weekend. I do love the Hernandez pick also. We have 8 people in the chat. I'll talk to the chat here for a couple of minutes. Fire away about this NFL weekend, about anything. 27-13 Colts. Yeah, that's kind of what I expect. I don't really expect us to do that well. I'm going to say 31-17 probably. Man. I don't think so. I think he still needs like a couple of more years. I think Josh Allen will always be trailing for a lot of that game. You saw Jared Goff go to New England. Rookie quarterbacks going to New England. Heck, even pretty good quarterbacks like Kirk Cousins going to New England. It's a brutal, brutal task. And I don't think so. It would stun me if the Bills had a chance to win. If the Bills won, it would stun me. Maybe the Bills will keep it close because New England's kind of a fraud team. In the regular season, that is. They have some holes. I didn't mean to say they're a fraud team, but I don't see... Josh Allen playing, in New England... Man, oh man, I want to see his mentality if he really believes he can win that game, because a lot of people don't even believe they can win the game, so that's one of my favorite games on the slate, though. Broncos and Raiders, the last Monday night game of the entire season, I believe. It is. Broncos, if Vance loses that game to Oakland, Vance is completely done, completely going to be fired. Heck, I still think he's going to get fired anyway. Chiefs, Seattle, way to flex that to Sunday night. Steelers and Saints is a fantastic, fantastic game that's going to be on, let's see if it's on Fox or CBS. It's on CBS. Tony Romo's going to be doing that game. He gets 2 consecutive Steelers-Saints. I think that the Saints will still win that game. I'd be pretty stunned if the Steelers didn't win it. Might check the line for that one. I don't know when the Giants are going to draft a quarterback. It could very well happen, though, this year. Curious about that Saints and Steelers line. I bet it's 5.5 for New Orleans. Let's see here real quick. I'll tell you guys that line, and then I'm going to bounce in a hurry. It's 6, so it's very close. All right, guys. Thanks so much for joining. I hope you really like Mr. Dugas. He's a heck of a guy, great person, and we had a lot of fun chatting tonight. So thanks to him for coming on the show. Take care, guys. Have a great night.